That was annoying. For some reason, the music stopped playing, even though I started it before I started my starting soon screen. It's really frustrating. Sorry for the dead silence during that portion, but that's good. Glad you're doing good, Icy. Glad you are doing good. I am also doing good. It is the start of my weekend, so that's always nice. I basically on Fridays get done and work at 10 a.m. So I basically get like a 3-day weekend out of it, which is really nice. Of course, I'll work longer on a Friday if I have stuff I have to get done or stuff to do, but most days we are able to get out pretty quick. Yeah, sure, go for it. Thank you. Appreciate that. I was gonna do a few Discord servers, but it's always so annoying to just go through all these servers and do their self-promo channels, so sometimes I just don't even worry about it. What's up, Creamy? Exclamation mark build will give you the info on what exactly is being done. What exact parts we are using. Oh, we already have the lid off. Okay. It's like, wait, where's the lid? It's already off. So we're gonna start. I'm actually just gonna take the keycaps off of this guy because I have not had a chance to pull these off yet. I'm basically starting today's stream like right when I got off work, so. Okay. So I have not had the chance to pull the keycaps off. So we're just gonna hang out for the start, do that a little bit. I changed it. Why do you do this to me? Did I not push save? Try it again. I push save on all these, but sometimes you have to push it a few times. Really hate the way Stream Elements doesn't update always. There we go. Always have to push save like 3 or 4 times just to make sure it's registered. So the keycaps are not on there yet because we did not do a poll for those. I have a special set of keycaps I just got in, I think, earlier this week or last week. One of the two. It might have been over the weekend that we're going to use for the build. Which it's funny. I wish I had the Alpaca stabilizers so that we could put those Alpaca Durock V2s with the Alpaca switches, but I have not purchased that set of stabilizers yet. So we're just going to use the darker colored Durocks to try and match the Alpacas as best we can. There we go. I keep getting the keycap puller under the switch since this is plateless, or half plate. I guess not plateless, but the alphas are. Since it's half plate, the keycap puller keeps going under to the bottom of the switch and trying to pull the switch out, which is not going to end up happening because it's soldered in. So we're just going to pull the rest of these off with my fingers here. Once you get one or two levels of keycaps done, it's pretty easy to pull the rest off just with your fingers. Turn my mic up just a little bit. It was a little low. Oh, that's one of the novelties. Gotta wait on that guy. Pull that guy off. It was funny. So yesterday I was going to be testing different foam configs for the I was going to be testing different foam configs for the Glacier. That didn't end up happening. It took basically the full stream to end up building it just once. I forget how much time it takes to put together a board that uses those sticky pour-on gaskets instead of the little sock-style gaskets. Applying 28 of those little gaskets took quite a bit of time. Put novelties go in here for the most part. Up here. Space bar goes down there. I believe the arrow should go in this guy. Should go down right here where the space bars are. We'll put these novelties in here as well. Two of them there and the other one up. And this guy should be able to go in here as well. That should work. We just gotta get off the F row, which will go in here. I should be able to pull these off with my fingers as well. Top row is tall enough; it's not too difficult. No. I did the stabilizer super quick so I could try and get through as many configs as possible. But the way the I forgot about those two. The way the gaskets go on didn't make life easier, so made things take just a hair longer. It's alright, it's not the end of the world. I tested a couple more configs off stream, but put that there, and we'll put the stepped caps lock below since there's a spot it would fit. Put the step there. There we go. All these keycaps are off. Didn't get a chance to take these off earlier. Usually when I'm rebuilding a board, I try to take the keycaps off before the stream. I just never got the chance. Come on. Flap didn't want to make that easy. Go. Alright, nice PVT Fuji is put away. We move this guy out. So we're just going to be doing some Durock V2 stabs. Let's grab this bag, gonna use the dark colored ones since there should be enough. Might have to use one of the light colored ones since we need 1, 2, 3, 4 sets of stabilizers, so 8 housings. 2, 4, 6, and we'll use one light colored. 2, 4, 6, and light colored. If I remember correctly, the dark housings came off of a HHKB layout, so there's only 3 stabilizers in that layout since you don't do a big backspace. Thus there's only 3 of the dark colored housings and stems. And we got some wires. We need a 6.25U, which should be this guy. Double check it's nice and straight. Feels like it's got a little bend to it. Not too bad, but a little. So let's go for a different short wire. Go for this guy. See how this one looks. Yeah, that one's much better. That shouldn't be too bad. That one looks pretty good. Then 3 short to you guys, and we'll be ready to go. 2 and 3. Cool. Wires. These are just all my Durock wires. Got more Durock wires than I do housings. Don't know how that works. We're gonna go ahead and use XHTPDZ today. For the wires, and then 205 for the stem and housing. Screwdriver. Should be all we need. Perfect. Let's trim this guy. I need to get some new brushes. These are starting to fray really bad. This is the brush I do my switch lubing with. Afraid brush is very annoying to lube switches with because I try to get it as precise as possible. And when the brush frays, it's a little hard to get precise. With linears, doesn't really matter too much. Matters more on tactiles because I avoid the legs as much as possible. I get 0 lube on the legs, so I don't want to ruin the bump. And we aren't streaming tomorrow. Today's stream is in place of tomorrow's stream, mostly because I have plans to go snowboarding tomorrow. So that's going to take place instead of a stream. Yeah. On the stream? Yeah, it's supposed to. There's nothing, that's all that goes inside that, that's all that goes inside that little box is the chat. It's just a different view. We can go to the other cam. Give me a sec. We can go to the other scene. Since I'm just doing stabilizers, I usually stay on the other scene for a bit. Just because stabilizers are pretty much boring work, but so I'll stay on the bigger top down or the bigger face cam for a little while we do these, typically. And then when I get to the actual build, we'll go to we start doing like soldering, switches, stuff like that. I'll typically switch to the bigger cam. Or if anyone has questions on stabilizers, stuff like that, we'll go to the big cam. Just to kind of break things up so it's not just the same view the entire time. I'm working on getting a second camera set up instead of just using like a scenes to do this. I'm thinking about getting a second camera set up so that we get a second angle, kind of more at a side angle rather than the top down. We'll do like a side angle. So once I get a second camera set up, I'll have that angle as well. But that won't be for probably a little while, because I still need to get a second camera set up for it. I don't know what I'll use for that yet. I'll probably, once I get like a, digital camera for streaming for myself, I'll probably be able to do it at that point. Which that's a upgrade I'm looking at making soon. But that won't be for a while because those things can get expensive. A good DSLR is gonna run you 800 plus after you get a good lens for it too. And when I get a DSLR, it's going to be used for streaming and sound tests, so I need to get probably need to get a 4K mirrorless when I do end up getting one, which is going to bump up the price a little bit, and a couple of different lenses. But that's all improvements for down the road. Nothing immediate. I also want to get a macro pad. I'm thinking about getting just like probably one of the KBD pads, just to use as like a macro pad to change between scenes instead of manually doing it in OBS. And I would just get like a stream deck, but I like the look of a macro pad better. And you can have it do the simple things of changing between scenes, etc. Not a huge fan of the look of the stream decks, so that's probably what I'll do, is just build a numpad to use as a macro pad, or find a smaller macro pad. Thinking of just using like the KVD pad, or maybe getting something that's a little smaller, maybe like a 3x3 macro pad instead of a larger numpad type. But Yeah, I think micropads look better too. Don't get me wrong, stream decks are super useful, but if you have the ability to make a macro, put together a macro pad, why not? It fits in better with the theme of keyboard builds anyways. I feel like so. Top mount half plate palm full brass case gold weight macro pad. There you go. Half plate macro pad for that plateless feel. The other reason it'd be nice to have a macro pad, especially something like the KBD pad, is I do sometimes find myself needing or wanting to use a numpad, so I could easily, have different layers for that. No worries, Icy. Thanks for stopping by. Glad you could hang out for a bit. Enjoy the rest of your day or evening. Alright, just about done with these housings. Of course, always open for some chit chat. Alright, that is the last housing. So let's get into the wires. I should also pull up the build guide. So I can remember at which point it tells you to solder on the screen and the encoder. I think the encoder is like last you solder on. I think the OLED's the screen. I think it has you do that before you even install the stabs, if I remember right. Yeah, it has you do the OLED first. We'll finish up the stabilizers. Yeah, we'll finish up the stabilizers and then we'll go ahead and take care of the OLED. So that typically is pretty quick. Doesn't take too long to install that OLED. Solder it in. It's going to be interesting to see how well all these foams fit in. Since we are using both PCB and PE foam. I guess plate foam and PE. Should call it plate foam. People use the term PCB foam for foam that has like switch cutouts or like hot swap socket cutouts on it that go basically on the back of the PCB. Some people just call that case foam, some people call that PCB foam. Really depends. Glacier, it's referred to as PCB foam on the instructions and on the parts list. So but that also could be because it has a separate pieces of foam for case foam as well. Let's go and move these stabilizers there when they're done. That way we have room to get the OLED soldered on. Probably break out the soldering mat, but I probably won't worry about setting up the fan since it's just a quick solder job to set that up. I'm gonna work a little bit harder on these stabilizers because I don't want to have to take them back off. I don't have a syringe loaded with this type of lube. We theoretically can throw some Krytox 205 in if we want to tune them with a syringe. It's usually not too big a deal to mix that with XHT. We've actually got some decent tuning results doing that. But that's also usually for me a last case scenario if I've already built it and then something's not sounding right. Try to make sure it's sounding good before we do any soldering, just so we don't have to worry about mixing the lubes, I do extra tuning, etc. And then since we're using Durock, I'm going a little thicker on the XHT than we would with something like owl stabs. Owl stabs have a pretty tight tolerance on the wire, in the stem for the wire. That holds pretty tight tolerance, so you can go pretty light, but with Durox it's a pretty normal sized hole. So there's a lot of wiggle, so we want to make sure we get a little extra than we would some newer stabs. That's why people like Stabies and the TX stabs. Much easier to tune them. Can use a lot less of your lube to keep them, to get them sounding good, which means less chance of over lubing. Just put a thin coat on. You don't have to worry about over lubing them. Cool. All right, now just the spacebar. Sure. Is this a 7U or a 6.25? I need to double check. This is 6.25. Okay. Cool. What's up, Vuitton? Thank you for the follow. How are you doing today? Appreciate the follow. That command was disabled. Since we're doing the build, let me remove it. Let me remove it from the title. Since we're doing the build now, I disabled the command. There we go. Updated that. Basically, for this keyboard build, I had put up a bunch of different polls on my TikTok account for people to vote on the parts we're using. So all the parts in today's build were chosen by people on TikTok. Think of it as if you were doing like just like Twitch plays this, you know, people on Twitch are choosing what's happening in the game, right? Seen some streamers do stuff like that. Basically, this is just the same thing, just with TikTok polls is how we chose the parts. Hope that makes sense. Looks pretty even. Looks well coded. That should be good. If you want to see what parts we're using, you can do !build. That's going to show you the build and all the parts that were chosen. I'll have to double check my title in a second to make sure the command was removed from the title. I'm done with this wire, we'll double check, because I removed it on OBS, but like other things, sometimes that doesn't take immediate effect. Don't want anyone to get confused and try using a command that I removed. There it goes. Good Wisebot. A little slow, but good Wisebot. There we go. All right. Stabilizers are complete. Wipe off some of the excess XHT here. Let's go ahead and work on getting the foam for the PCB. It's a I forget what they call it, like a conductive foam. Yeah, the conductive foam block. It's for making sure the PCB does not short out. Excuse me. Gives some space between the case and the PCB so that we don't have any shorting issues. The soldered joints or the OLED screen touches the bottom of the case, we can get a short. Excuse me, let me get some water real quick. All right, there we go. That's better. Let me see. Has this PCB been opened before? Does not look like this one's been tested. So I think we'll actually go ahead and test it first. Before we even solder on that, we need to do a test. This must be the one I got most recently, because I think I tested the other two. Alright, let's open up via tweezers. This bad boy in. It's not going to register in here just because the firmware is not currently on it for the OLED. The reason being, if the firmware with the OLED is in there and the OLED's not soldered in, it does not work properly. The firmware doesn't, so it expects the OLED to be there and soldered, and then if it's not, it's like, whoa, what's going on here? So for anyone that might be new, all we're doing right now is using these tweezers just to complete the connection on the switch pin holes on the PCB. This is just going to ensure before we do any soldering that everything works properly. So if something doesn't work, that means there's an issue with the PCB and we need to reach out to the vendor to get it replaced. It's always good to do this before you do any soldering to a PCB. Let me go ahead. While I'm doing that, let me do this so you guys can see. Go there. So you guys can at least see what I'm doing on the screen. Let's see, we're on this row. Right. Yeah, on this row. There we go. There, right? Okay. Fine. A couple of them looked a little funky, but it's fine. There we go. It's like, why is that not working? That should be the function button, so it will not light up anything right now without the firmware. Windows key, and then there we go. All right, so this PCB looks good. All right, let me go back over to chat real quick. All right, do I have any pets? I do not, actually. Excuse me. Throat's a little dry today, not sure why. But no, I do not have any pets since I live in an apartment. I do not have a pet yet. Once my wife and I might get a cat soon, but once we move into a house or a townhome, something like that, we'll probably get a pet. You're so pissed at today's customs right now. Switches yours weren't lubed. Ghosting his whole Discord. No one is responding. He is stealing everyone's money. That's unfortunate. It's always unfortunate when you order switches that are lubed from someone and they are not lubed or not lubed well. This is one of the reasons I do not order switches from people. I prefer to just do the lubing myself. That way I don't have to worry about if they were lubed well or not. Because then if I lube them myself, I know these are lubed well. They're not going to have any issues. They're going to feel nice. Everything. So it's a lot of work, but so it's the better way to go typically, in my opinion. if possible, of course. Let's see. But that is very unfortunate. What I would look into is trying to go through your payment method, whatever your payment method was, try and go through that to get your refund, since your product was not, as described. You were supposed to get loop switches, they weren't. So if he's not responding, you're not able to get anything figured out through him, always reach out to your payment method and try and get it that way. That's always a last resort, but sometimes people do not leave you any other choice. I've unfortunately had to do that once as well on a keyboard related thing. I was not getting a response from purchasing something and it not being correct, and there being an issue with it. Never got a response. So I had to go through my bank to get them to issue a refund, and then they gave the other person a chance to respond. They never did, of course, because they never responded to me either. And so then I got my refund. It's unfortunate when you have to go that far, but sometimes it might be necessary. All right, let's go ahead and get my soldering pad out. This real fast. Break out the soldering pad. Soldering iron. Solder this guy. Break this stuff out real quick. All right. Basically, for the OLED, you're just gonna solder in one of the pins, make sure everything's straight, and then you solder in the rest of the pins. Quick 350. Get this going up real quick. Normally I would use a fan when doing any soldering, but this is gonna be a quick solder, so I'm not too worried about the fan. Just kind of blow the smoke away from me. Shouldn't be a big deal. Alright, so now what we're going to do, make sure this is straight. Twist it down just a little. There we go. I like that. Perfect. I think that looks perfect, actually. I think that looks better than the first one I did. Come on. Yeah, that second to last one got a little too much solder on there, but that's okay. Alright, so we'll put this away. Be sure not to touch it because the thing's hot. I already burned myself once accidentally touching a soldering iron after using it. So we're going to make sure we do not do that again. Pop this guy down. This should be cool enough to touch now. And we'll give it just a little bit longer. Don't want to burn the Deskmat or anything. Then we can start installing stabilizers. No, we need to put the foam on actually. Let's get the conductive foam on and then we'll get the stabilizer going. The conductive foam goes, let's see. That was a boo-boo. That's okay. We'll fix it. Well, you always have a solder sucker. So when you do a boo-boo like that. Should be a pretty fixable boo-boo, I'd say. But we put the OLED on the wrong side. Was not paying attention to the side of the PCB we were on. And I screwed the things on. So we are currently on the wrong side of the PCB. Fixable. Pretty easy. Just bring out the old solder sucker. This is why you always pay attention. We're definitely on the wrong side with the screen. If any of these are still holding on. Looks like that one still has a little on the underside. get a better angle. Some of these joints. Turn the heat up just a hair. Usually like to desolder about 370. Trying to be careful so I don't, you know, mess up anything on the PCB, but it should be fine. Go. Right. This is why whenever you're doing soldering, you always have a solder sucker available to fix little mistakes. Because ultimately we all make little mistakes. Forget on this board the USB port is on the underside of the PCB. Excuse me. So we need to put the standoffs on this side. Because this is the back side. This is the front side. So the standoffs for the OLED have to go on this side to hold it up on this side, not the other side. What's the point of the OLED if it's under the PCB, right? Yep. Because let's face it, everyone makes a small mistake when they're building keyboards. Always gonna make a mistake. Once in a while it happens. Don't have the solder sucker or a way to remove the solder. That's gonna make life difficult. Right there, life was easy. This guy back on to our 340 and resolder this. Straight. Yeah, it looks pretty straight to me. Looks pretty damn straight to me. Perfect. Cool. Voila! Issue's been resolved. Now let's get the conductive foam placed. Conductive foam just goes on that circle, right? Yep, right on that circle. Get tweezers to help place this. That should be good. Conductive foam should be in there. If we have any issues with it, we'll just pull it off and cut it. They do suggest cutting it, but the last build I did not have to do that. So I'm going and hoping that that is the same case with this build, that we won't have to worry about cutting it. Alright, let's get screws and washers out. Get these stabilizers installed real fast. And then we'll test out the stabilizers, see how they sound. Probably test them out without putting the plate on just to make things easier. Since if they're not sounding good, I'll have to take them off to re-lube with XHT. So I'd rather not have to take everything out. Oh, actually, before we do this, we should look at the PE foam we have. Need to see if how the cutouts are on it, because some PE foam has to go on under the stabilizer. Don't know if this is one of those or if this can go on over it. looks like it has cutouts for the wires. That out the way. Yeah, it looks like it has cutouts for the wires. That's good. But we'll still put it on anyways. End of the day, it'll still make life easier already having it on. But it's nice to know it does have the cutouts. When I first built the Jelly Epoch, if I remember correctly, that you had to put the PE foam on, then put the stabilizers on. There were not full cutouts for the wires like this. So now whenever I'm using PE foam, I always check to make sure whether the PE foam has to go under the stabilizer or if it can just go around over them. When I custom cut PE foam for the Primus, I made sure I had cutouts. So I could just plop it right on over the stabilizers after installing them. Since the custom cut PE foam was a little looser fit, I didn't want to have to worry about trying to install stabilizers while holding the foam down. But this specific set of foam I'm using is from GreenDoorGeeks. They do a really good job of designing their foam and cutting their foam. This is the first set of foam I think I've ordered from them. But based on everything I've looked, I really like it. I think it's a little better, a little more well done than Stupid Fish. Pricing is a lot better than Stupid Fish as well. What is up, Loading V4? How you doing today? Really appreciate the follow. Glad you could stop by the stream. We are currently getting stabilizers installed on the Satisfaction75. Then we're gonna check out the stabilizers, see if they need any more tuning. Alright, let's get the spacebar on. Thank you. I'm glad you like the way it looks. I'm really happy with how it turned out myself. I'm starting to worry that this is not 6.25 and that is actually 7. Let me grab my wires real quick. So that's not, something's just not. No, it's a 6.25. It's definitely 6.25. Okay. Just for some reason it's looking a little long to me. I think we're good. But yeah, this Glacier, I built this yesterday. It's just the hot swap PCB and it's built plateless. I really like how it looks. It came out really well. And then the keycaps I think are pretty good for it. They help bring out the navy color. This is a very dark navy. A lot of keycap sets either make it look black or a dark gray. So I was trying to work on picking out a set to bring as much of the navy out as possible. I think the set does well. All right. Stabilizers are installed. Let's put these washers away. That's because there's not very many of them out right now at the moment. Once the group buy units ship, it'll be a little easier to get. Not too easy because there's still only a limited number, but it'll be easier to get once the group buy units ship out. Thank you, Ed. I'm glad you think so. Let's see how well these alpacas fit. They should fit into this plate pretty well. Let's see. I was afraid of the holes are not that well done, fortunately. The holes are all just a hair off. The matrix looks good too. I almost thought about getting the matrix, but I decided against it. All right. Try and find some keycaps here. Oh, excuse me. Whew. Tried to get the mute button in time, but not quite. Yep. Work. That should work. Let's go ahead and listen to these bad boys. Make sure we don't need to do any more tuning. That is the 7U bar. Other bars in here. That's a really weird angle for that. Put it back in there. Okay, something's up with that stabilizer, so I'm gonna have to take a look at that real quick. Did I get something in the wrong hole? Yeah, we'll take that stabilizer off real fast. Looks like the wire got put into the incorrect hole, so we'll just pop it off. Alright, so let's take a quick look. Put the stabilizer. There we go. There we go. We just had it missing the hole. The wire was right under the stem instead of inside the bottom hole, so I had to pop that off and fix it. That might need re-lube because we might have lost some of the lube, but we'll see. Some of that may have wiped away. We'll see. I believe it goes like that. Let's go and listen to this bad boy. What's up, Northern Nerd? Thank you for the follow. Really appreciate it. How are you doing today? Thank you. Appreciate that. Glad you're doing good. Sounds fine. That's not, the spacebar has a little. Spacebar has a little rattle to it, the rest sound good. So let's fix the spacebar real quick. When you said nice keycaps, are you talking about the ones on the Glacier? The ones on the built board? Or the ones I'm using for stabilizer testing right now? Grab this and the XHT and we'll throw a little more on the wires. Spacebar. Because the ones on the built board, those are really, I'm really impressed with the way they came out. Yeah. So the ones on the built board, I'm really impressed the way they look. I ordered those the beginning of the month. I think they took like 3 weeks to get here almost. So I think they're ordered. Oh, it might only been 2 weeks. It's the 15th. I think I ordered it at the end of March, so I think it took like 2.5 weeks to get here. Because I had to order them off of AliExpress because they are from KP Republic over in China. And that's the only place to get the Dampening cherry keycaps from at the moment. It's a little unfortunate, but let's go a little thicker than that even. This stuff does not want to behave today. Come on now. There we go. This stuff did not want to behave today. I originally got those keycaps for a light purple board, but I don't think they're going to look as good as I originally thought they would. I think they look really good on the navy colored board, but the light purple I don't think it would go as well with. Yeah, that's what I think too. It goes better on that board than I thought it would. Honestly, I didn't think it goes super great on this board, but it looks like it's really good. So, I got into keyboards. Let's see, it's been a year now. It's been right around a year now. So last year around like April time frame. That's when I really got into keyboards. Okay. Let's give that a try. I think I built my first keyboard in June, but I did a bunch of mods to keyboards, but more budget friendly keyboards. Did a bunch of modding too in April, May. And then June was my first full custom build. Beginning of June. And then probably middle to late June was my first solder build. Which is when, because it took me about a week to learn to solder, just because I wanted to take it slow and do a bunch of soldering and desoldering on a cheaper board before going into an expensive board, because the first solder board I did was probably a $400 or $500 board, so I didn't want to mess up that PCB. Yeah, that sounds much better. Yeah, that sounds much better. Cool. Okay, this should be cool. My way. Yeah. They can. They really do. If your stabs don't sound good, your board's gonna already be at a disadvantage. The stabs in this board don't sound the best, but that's because it was just for testing the board, doing different foam configurations, so I didn't work too hard on them. Since that board's not going to stay put together super long, it's going to be taken back apart probably within the next few days, so I can do an actual solder build next week. So I figure once I go through and actually do the build, I can just redo the stabilizers anyways. All right, here's our foam. So we got our plate foam in. And we'll get our carbon fiber plate. Okay. All right. Things looking pretty good so far. So let's go ahead and start getting these switches put in, I guess. Got a few Kiwis in here. Those out there. when I moved, these were in a 2 little baggies, and when I moved, I went ahead and put them inside a jar like this that I store my stabilizers in. So I had Kiwis in there because when I bought these switches, they came with some extra Kiwis from the person I bought them from. There we go. So yeah, they came with some extra Kiwis, so I just threw the Kiwis in there, really. These are actually alpacas that I did not lube myself. I purchased these lubed from Sleepy Bison, I believe. Don't know if he has his website open anymore. I did film them myself since they weren't filmed, and typically you do want to have alpacas filmed. What does the display on the upper right show? So this OLED with the stock firmware, it shows, let's see. If I remember correctly, it's just like the time, and then it shows it's not closed. There we go. And it shows what layer you're on. When caps lock's on, it has little indicators for all of that. I do have a firmware from a Discord server that has a few extra things on it. It has the Bongo Cat on it. It has a Kirby animation on it, and it has a dog animation on it that do different things when you type, press space, shift, etc. Once we get through the build, I'll actually show off what's on the OLED with the firmware I'm going to use. Let's make sure. Let's see, when does it have you do that? It should be the last thing should be to, yeah. So as you do that last, let's make sure this plate supports the encoder going in last. It looks like it should, but I just want to double check. Yep, Bongo Cat is definitely a classic. I do like the little Kirby one myself. It's pretty cool. Okay, cool. We have no issues getting that in there. Just wanted to make sure. This is a plate from Canyon Keys, so I wasn't too worried, but it's always good to make sure. But yeah, Bongo Cat's the classic. A lot of OLEDs on a lot of different boards have a Bongo Cat animation for them. That's one of the things I really like about this board is you got that OLED that you can get different firmwares for, or if you're knowledgeable yourself, you can even change up the firmware and add to it yourself and customize it. I haven't dabbled in it yet. I do plan to work on customizing firmware a little bit and adding some stuff to it, but that is when I get the time, and I have not had the time. I believe last I remember someone mentioning it's written in C. I believe the firmware is in C, so I'd also need to go back to my college days to remember a little bit of C. Whew. It's definitely tight. Does not sit all the way in. Should be fine. We'll have to see. We will have to see. Before we solder, I might pop this into the case to make sure there's no issues with it closing. Just to be on the safe side. And there's no issues with the way the keycaps and everything sit. Before we get all the way in to the build. Don't want to solder the switches with the plate foam in there and it not sit well. So what we're gonna do, let's go ahead and put a few of these down in here. Get the left side done, and then we're just gonna pop it in before we get the rest of the switches in. Just want to make sure that it's excuse me, going to sit in the case fine. Excuse me again. With the switches a little higher than normal. It's not too much. Could be worse. But it's always nice to check on that. Here we're gonna set that aside. Take out the wrench we need. We'll pop the board apart real fast. Ultimately, we have to take it apart anyway, so it's not really that big a deal to do it now. We'll screw the knob. Let's see. That looks like it's correct. Cool. Just those two. Yep, we should be able to get in there all the way good. That one's close, but we still are good. Okay. Screw will pop out when we turn it over. Go. And this should be the same size as well. Yes. This is a top mount board, so it's a little easier to assemble. Top mount with O-rings, which does make it a little more annoying, but still not too bad. For our testing here, we can put together without the O-rings. It's not really going to be too big a deal. Make sure we don't lose the O-rings. That would be a slightly bigger deal. Pick up a few of these O-rings. Like I said, when we throw this back together just to check on the how the PCB sits and the plate sits and the switches, I'm not going to worry about the O-rings at the moment just because it's not a big deal. That's only for the finished product. It'll really make a difference. Go. We'll try and keep those over. Should be all the missing ones. Two. Yep. Pop these ones in. We keep them with the case and don't lose them. Thankfully, this will be a little easier to screw in without having the encoder on. Encoder actually made life a little more difficult. Probably just do these two side screws and then one or two up and down. That should be enough to hold it. Don't screw it too tight. Good. Let's just grab a few keycaps. We'll steal a few from the board above. Yeah, it's looking fine. Yeah, it's looking pretty fine. Be careful taking these keycaps off so I don't pull the switches out. Since this is a hot swap plateless board. I think that's looking fine. Looks like it should be fine. Alright. I'm going to take these couple screws back off. Everything looks like it should be fine. If we need to, we'll put the mounting screws in a little tighter than it normally does. You normally do with this. But everything looks like it should be fine. Screw O-ring. How many O-rings are we missing? That one. Sure. All the O-rings are off. These things back real fast. I dropped one somewhere, so we're just gonna take this guy there. There should be a few extra O-rings. I believe this comes with extra. I'm not super worried. Just have to dig out the bag with them. It'd be weird if it didn't come with any extra O-rings, to be perfectly honest. Because something like this is super easy to lose one. We'll make sure we have all of them, and if so, we're good. If not, we're good. Extra. Yeah, it looks like there's gonna be one hiding somewhere. That one's got one. Check. Let's just grab the extras. Let's see. Alright, let me go grab the extra pieces. We'll be back in just a few minutes. Then we'll get the switches, the rest switches in and get soldering. Yeah, just one of them. One of them fell off. I don't see it on the plate. Double check the plate. It should have extras that come with it. So it's really not that big a deal. Actually, never mind. Found it. It was on the other plate. It's the thing about small pieces like that. Super easy to misplace one, drop one, and not have them. All right. So everything looks like it should sit in the case fine. So we'll get the rest of the switches put in and then get to soldering. If everything didn't sit fine, there would have been two options. I would have either had to build this without the plate foam or PE. Plate foam seems a little thick on this guy, I'm not gonna lie. But the other option is you can also solder one pin and then reflow that pin and push down on the switch to get it to sink in just a little bit more. I checked out how much extra I can get the switch to sink in doing that with this setup. It doesn't go in much. It's not really, wouldn't really be worth it for the slight extra bit it goes in. So. Thankfully, enough of the switch pin is showing to solder it, so we shouldn't have any issues there. Really, it was just making sure everything sits into the case correctly. Which I didn't check the bottom, but I'm not super worried about the bottom. We'll have to check it with the case foam and see how that goes. But ultimately, I'm not really seeing too many issues here. Since we are using case foam, I probably could have gone without that little piece of conductive foam, but I figured it's better to have the foam on the back of the PCB instead of losing it, so that if I ever take the case foam out, I don't have to worry about making sure I attach that. Alright, so these guys, I want to do two right, so it should be that slot. It should be that one. Yeah, it looks right. I'm going to push all the switches down to make sure they are all sitting as far as they can and all sitting the same amount, but that's about all we're going to do. Check for evenness. All right, everything looks good. Did a quick check to make sure all of the switch pins are pretty even and nothing is bent. Is this a personal build? Yes, this is a personal build. So for this build, I had to everyone on TikTok choose all the parts that we're doing the build with, and I definitely would not do that with another person's build unless that's what they wanted or something, you know. So that's only something I would do with a personal build. And then certain things like the fact that the switches don't sit all the way in, I wouldn't do that on another build. I'd probably take the time to solder each pin slow individually and then push it in to get it just seated a little bit more on a commission build. On a personal build, the little things like that aren't gonna bug me too much. But on someone else's board, I'm definitely going to take a little more time and do things a little more, I guess, professional. You know, make sure switches are literally as far as they could go down. Now let's go and put this over here. Fan out. Solder. That mouse is for my work computer. Okay. All right. So before we start the soldering, I am going to take a quick break, go refill my water, and then we will get to the soldering portion. So I'll be back in just about 5 minutes. Go ahead and hang out, listen to some music, and then we'll get started on the soldering portion. Alright. I'm back. Get to doing the soldering now. Just on my way just a hair. There we go. You probably will hear some noise from the fan, but that's just so I don't die from the toxic chemicals. Okay, it's not quite that dramatic, but you get what I'm saying. Should be all heated up. Cool. Let me move this a little bit. There we go. So how's everyone doing today? Anyone got any big plans for the weekend? Anything major coming up? I myself am going to be going snowboarding tomorrow. So first time I've been snowboarding in about 4 years, so it's going to be interesting. Nice. Snow work is always nice. It's Friday, so I got my early day off today. Which, now that I'm running off Pacific time and still working on East Coast time, this ending work early on a Friday means I'm basically done at 10 a.m. my time. So it's really like a 3-day weekend. Yeah, I snowboarded for about a year. Back in senior year of college. That was the only time I had ever snowboarded. And so now I'm going to be going for the first time in 4 years. Back over in Virginia, there wasn't a ton of good snowboarding, to be perfectly honest. There's no real mountains tall enough for it. So all the places to go are basically fake snow, man-made snow. That's just no fun. Prefer real snow. but it's my wife's best friend's birthday coming up soon, so that's why we're going snowboarding tomorrow specifically, to go hang out with her. It's probably the last decent weekend for snowboarding too. There was a bunch of snow up there yesterday. There's supposed to be more up there on Saturday, tomorrow, while we're up there. It's looking fine. Trying to be a little more careful with how much solder I put in here, just because we barely have any pins sticking out. It's gonna be a little lighter. Sorry if I'm not super chatty. I'm trying to concentrate a little more on the soldering just because of the small amount of switch pins sticking out. I want to make sure we don't do too much solder on here. So yeah, I don't want to use too much solder, but we also have to make sure we use enough solder that we don't have any issues with the key presses not registering. It's kind of a catch-22. Don't want to under solder, but don't want to over solder. Oh, it almost looked like it. Those two almost looked like cold joints, but just figured I'd make sure they were warm all the way. Alright, bottom row and we're done. That was an instance where I almost didn't put enough solder on. Exactly what we're trying to avoid. Should be good enough. Okay. I want to go ahead and test it out real quick. Pop open VIA and give it a quick run. Didn't turn V on. There we go. Yeah, everything looks good. Almost looked like the right shift was a little weird, but everything looks good. Everything's looking good, so now we'll get the encoder in and soldered on. When does it have me flash it? I'll have to flash it. Probably after we solder the encoder on, I'll go and flash it. Okay. Let's go and get it flashed. Switch it to 1. Here, I've already ran the dig, so I don't need to do that. But I do need to do QMK. Let's go. Icons. QMK. So we'll click open, find the bin file. All right, so plug this guy in. And the bootloader we need to open. Let's see, I should have the correct bin file in desktop, icons, keyboard, QMK, satisfaction. V8. Yes, that's the one I want. And click flash. What's up, Creamy? Welcome back. So that should be good. Flip it back to 0. Push the reset button, it says. Plug it in. OLED should work. What do you know? And hit console connected. Candy key so QMK says Candy key Satisfaction75 was connected. Excellent. And let's go to VIA. And Satisfaction75. Oh, look at that. Layouts. 1.5U mods. Perfect. Key tester. Double test everything. No, PCB is working fine. Why? What do you ask? PCB is perfect. As expected. It just requires a flash. And there we go. Cool. Some PCBs require you to flash them. This is one of them. Because of the OLED screen, they don't have the firmware with the OLED on there. Because if you have that firmware on the PCB without the OLED... Yeah, if you have the OLED firmware on there without the OLED installed, it's not going to work. So you won't be able to test the PCB before you build it. So we have to test the PCB, build it, solder the encoder, solder the switches, solder the screen, and then flash it, and then retest it to make sure everything's kosher. All right, now that we have finished with the... Is the music done? What's going on with the music? Don't hear any music. What happened to the music? That's annoying. The music just went away. Interesting. That was weird. Oh, I know what happened. I tested the encoder press and that mutes it. That's right. That's what the encoder's for. Pressing mutes. It's like, what the heck happened to the music? Alright. So now that we're done soldering, I need to go wash my hands after that. Get any of the little pieces of solder on my hands off. So go ahead and hang out for about 5 minutes. I'll go wash up and we will finish up the build. All right. So let's go ahead and get this assembled. Let's pull off the little tab on the screen. Get rid of that bad boy. Don't need that. Remember to pull that off this time. I believe my other one actually still has the little protection on the screen on it, which is kind of funny. Alright, so make sure all our O-rings are placed correctly. They look fine. Good. Then we'll come over here. This side. Go. Perfect. Get one up here. Once we get a few more screws in, I'm going to take that first guy out to make sure it went in correctly. Our O-rings look like they're there. Yep, that's good. All right. So things are looking good so far. Make sure we don't over tighten so we still have a little bit of flexibility in the typing experience, but it's a top mount board, so flex is not our priority on this build. Flex is just a nice extra bonus, as it may. These guys. I am thinking about doing a force brake mod to this case. I think there is a little bit of case ping. I don't know if it'll matter with this build, since we got quite a bit of foam. We're going to be using case foam, but a force brake mod is something that might be a good idea on this case. With the marshmallows and half plate, I didn't notice too much ping, but you could hear a little bit, I think. So that's looking good. Grab the bottom case here. Let's check out this foam. I'm really hoping this foam is super thin. Looks pretty thin. Looks very thin, so that's good. Definitely a tight fit, I'm not gonna lie. The case foam in there. Definitely having to screw quite a bit on these screws, so. Get the case all the way sunken together. So there's no gap. Don't remember having to screw quite this much, but you know, that's okay. As long as everything functions, that don't really matter to me. Case screws all the way in there, then we will make sure everything's kosher. Make sure we're not getting any shorting from that conductive foam. There is a, since there's no screw up here at the top, there is a little bit of gap at the top you can see. Since there's no screw to sync that together. However, the rest of it looks a-okay. Maybe we'll sync it together with the screw, the rest of it, so. Go and plug it in. See if we're shorting. And see, that's not what we want. Looks like it probably is shorting out from that conductive foam. Okay. Does look like we are getting a short, so let's go ahead and take this apart real quick and trim up that conductive foam. Once I saw how tight we had to make this, I had a feeling that might happen. Because of how much extra it's going to push down on that foam. But alright, so all we really need to do is trim up that conductive foam. See if we plug the PCB back in, should be a-okay. Be a-okay with it. See, so that means we're just shorting out. So that means that conductive foam is coming into contact with stuff we don't want to come into contact with. All we are going to do, trim a little bit of it off. Tweezers. Back on. Go. Alright, so that should be better. Now, even with that foam getting compressed, it shouldn't short. I didn't have too much of an issue with this in my first time building this guy. Didn't have any issue with it shorting out. But that was mainly, also have to keep in mind that I did not have foam in it, because this normally is not meant to be built with foam. We're just doing this because we have the foam. So why not? Why not? But when I built it the first time without the foam, I did not have an issue with it shorting. I know sometimes people do. It just depends on how well that... Let's see. Actually, we should be able to check on it before we finish screwing it in too, just to make sure. See, there we go. Everything's kosher. We just needed to get that foam chopped up a little bit. So we'll get the rest of this screwed in. You do these two and the other two on the sides. So once this is screwed in, we'll double check a test once, but everything should be good. Then we'll go ahead and get the keycaps on and get our sound test. Plugged in, and voila. Like I said, we just had a little short because of that conductive foam touching two pieces that don't need to touch. Conductive foam is just a hair too big. It's an issue they have with that foam, so even their build guide suggests cutting it up just a little bit. The first time I was not needing to, this time I did. Just how it goes sometimes. So, open via, just to verify everything is still kosher. Cool. So let's get the keycaps on, shall we? For that, I actually might need to bring up the diagram of the keycaps too real quick to remember what goes where. Okay. You pop this way. we go. Get the knob on. Then we'll get the keycaps. Let's get rid of there we go. ZXCVBN QWERTY. See. All right, now we just got to get all these keycaps on, and unfortunately, this keycap set does not come in a tray, so you just have to dump it out, pick up a keycap, and put it on. Okay. Three, four, five. What's cool is this keycap set is actually color. These switches are color matched to this keycap set. The keycap set is SA Bliss. The F is on this side. The keycap says SA Bliss, and the Alpaca switches were actually made to be the same color as these switches. So that's why I was actually kind of happy that the TikTok poll ended up choosing Alpacas. So, yeah. There. Because not only is this my first time using SA sculpted keycaps, we're matching the switches to the keycaps, which is kind of cool. That's why I do wish I had the Alpaca stabilizers, the Durock V2s that are color matched to the Alpaca switches, just because that would have been really cool. Yeah, okay. Just make sure I'm... The SA profile is very interesting. So I'm just making sure I'm putting things in there. Correct row for a few things. Quarter T. Like this, I want to make sure it was oriented correctly. And then this stuff. We're going to go with the scooped F instead of the non-scooped. Put that guy aside. This goes this direction, right? Yeah. Okay. Okay. Don't need that single pipe slash. This is the scoop J. XCV, it's B here. Don't need the non-scoop J. Those are 1. Oops, that Z is upside down. There we go. It's like that looks weird. Why does that look weird? Cool. And E goes with the semicolon down, correct? Yep, semicolon down. The N is also wrong. Go. This is going to be a little on the loud side, I think, with the SA keycaps and the PE foam. IOP, yeah, IOP. Cute. Yep. Definitely a little on the louder side with the PE foam, not gonna lie. It's still a nice sound, don't get me wrong. Still sounded nice, but definitely a little louder with the PE foam than if it didn't have PE. Alright. This will be the fun one. Getting all the modifiers. Modifier bag will be the fun one. That's the space bar we need. That much I know. Okay, so we're just gonna start going with the bigger guys. There is not a different colored one of these, so that's the one we want. And then there is not a different color left shift, so we'll go with that one. Don't need the big left shift, that much I know. I want the pink return. Just goes like that. Okay, that's all sounding pretty good. So then this should be the right shift that we need. Yes, sir. All right. And the rest is going to be just smaller keycaps. So let's go ahead and use, let's see. This is that row. I think want this one up here, I think is what we're going to do. That's what we're going to go with. And we're gonna just kind of start digging through. This is caps lock. We need stepped. It's this guy. Tab. Going through the. Do you need this guy? Need that guy. Basically, just gonna start going through the bigger keys and figuring out what we need. Bigger guys. I should need that. That should be good, I think. I think that's what they use as control. Yeah, that should be good. That, and we'll find one of those in the small guy, and we'll be actually pretty good here. That's a large one. That should be tab. Yeah, it looks like it's tab. Cool. The row's correct as well. There's F10. Just kind of digging through this to find all the keycaps we need. F2. F2 can go there. F10 goes there. Arrows are pink. Arrows would be the last one I do because those are kind of a pain to get the profile correct. F12. F5. F8. That guy. Don't need that guy. That guy. F3. $11. Almost there. 6. What are we looking for? I think we're looking for this one actually is the one I want. Cool. I'll just find the rest of the function keys. Four. So we just need F1, which is there. Cool. The spacebar on. That's the 7U spacebar. We don't need the 7U. We need the 6.25U. Let's grab the other spacebar. Why do I always grab the long one? Probably because my preferred is 7U. Oh yeah, that sounds good. That is sounding good. Alright. Got this guy here. That guy there. Cool. Yeah, it's that way. Excellent. So then let's do some symbols on our other keys. This guy. Got this guy. Do that guy there. Oh, that's not the right level. That's not the right profile. Let's see. Actually, you know what I want to do? Don't think there's a big one of these though, is there? I think they're both small. I want to use that here. Got that guy. That guy. I think that's right profile. Yeah, it's the right profile for both those. Sweet. We just need this profile. Let's do one of these. think it's that one. So we'll check. Yes, buddy. Got those right. Awesome. Let's see. We got these two. Let's see if I want to use one of these or not. I think I want to use it here. Cool. That should be the up arrow. Yeah, it should match. I think the rest of these don't matter. I think the bottom row is all the same, but we'll see. Yeah, bottom row is all the same. Cool. Actually, I don't like that guy up there, so I won't put that one up there. I think it's the same profile. Yeah, those are the same row. R1, R1. So I think I want to put that one up there. I think I like that one better. The cool thing about the SA profile is those row ones are so tall, you just pull them off with your hands, depending on the switch, of course. Alpacas have kind of a tight tolerance on the stems, but all right. Plugged in. Do I have a function? I don't have a function key right now. Let me set that up as function. Go into VIA. We're going to change right control since we don't use right control. No one really uses right control. Layers. MO1. Basic, we'll go to F13. I think I need an F13 key. Is F13 a special? Yeah, F13 special. Cool. So we got Bongo Cat. We got Luna. So at Bongo Cat we have filled in option, and we got Kirby or Luna option. Cool. I don't know how to change that stuff. I'll figure that out another time. We will leave it on Bongo Cat for now, but we'll do filled in Bongo Cat. Alright, so let me get VIA closed up. Let's get our typing test taken care of. All right, I'm gonna mute so I can get it in position, and then we're gonna turn off the noise gate. So you're gonna hear a bit of noise once we do the noise gate disabling. Alright, now this will probably be a slightly louder sounding one than last stream, so you're probably going to really be able to hear this sound test. But we're going to do a quick few warm-ups, and then we'll do a minute long. I think there's a little ticking in the spacebar, so let me fix that real quick. Alright, there we go. I think I fixed the slight tick we had. So let's go ahead and do a sound test now. We'll do a 1-minute sound test. So this is a Satisfaction75 built with Alpaca linear switches. It has SA Bliss keycaps on it. We have case foam, plate foam, and PE foam all on this build. Still think there's just a little bit of ticking in that space bar. Let's throw a little bit more Crytox in here. There we go. There we go. That's a bit better. All right, so that is really all for today. Slightly longer stream than usual. A little bit more involved with this build. Especially when you're using XHTBDZ for the stabs. Usually it takes a little longer. But I really like how this turned out. I think this build turned out really, really good. Super happy with these keycaps. I think the case sounds fine with all the foam. I prefer it without the foam, but the PE foam doesn't have that super marbly sound like it typically does, which I kind of like. But yeah, so that is all for today. I will be back next week with another stream. We'll be building the solder build of my Glacier at some point next week. We're also going to be making some Franken switches next week. We're going to make some black cherry pies that is going in the Glacier. So Tuesday will probably be a keyboard chores stream. Saturday, the Glacier stream. And then we'll probably do something sometime within that time frame. We'll probably end up doing some more config testing on the Glacier or finishing up the black cherry pies on another stream or working on another switch. I got lots of switches to work on right now. So, but I appreciate everyone hanging out. It's been a great day building this Sat75. I think another good build came out of the TikTok builds. So I'm definitely gonna be doing this again for a third time. Probably not, in the near future, but probably give it another couple months. I might make this a tri-monthly thing, every 3 months or so do this, but this was a lot of fun. Hope everyone has a great rest of their day, and I'll see you next time.